Hello and welcome to Homeroom. I'm Nancy Pierce, Communications Supervisor for the Mobile County Public School System. And today we're joined by Bill Duffy. He is the Head of Security, the Director of Security for the school system. And it's good to have you back. I think it's been probably a year.
Right.
Yeah.
We do this annually.
We
so
do.
I look forward to it.
Try to get caught up and see what's going on. We've opened the school year. I think it went really well.
Very smoothly.
Yes,
Had
I
a
know.
good opening.
Of course, anytime we say something like that,
Right.
we try not to say things like that.
Right.
But we were pleased. I mean, we were really pleased as far as...
First week was fairly quiet.
It really was. It really was. It seemed to last a long time, longer than a week, but maybe that was just getting back into school.
I think the anxiety, anticipation of problems caused that length, but
Sure.
Fortunately everything was quiet. Had a good opening.
Tell me about yourself, Bill. You were in law enforcement for years.
Yes. Well, I'm a native Mobilian,
Uh-huh.
and my parents are from here, so we've got a lot vested in this community. All my brothers and sisters still live here and work here in this community. I attended schools here, obviously. Graduated from South Alabama with a degree in criminal justice, and then went to work for the Mobile Police Department. Was there about 5.5 years. Took a job with the school system in the late 70s, which at that time was a pilot program, the resource officer program. I was one of the first 4 resource officers hired.
I think I forgot that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm old. And after being with the system, I think it was a little over 10 or 12 years or so, I went back and got my master's in criminal justice from Troy, and was fortunate to move up through the promotional ranks, and currently am the director. I just finished my 33rd year with the school system.
Wow.
So proud to be here and enjoy the work.
Well, we're glad you're here because you do a great job.
Well, thank you.
You have how many resource officers?
Well, we have 12 resource officers.
Which really isn't enough.
Well, we have the resource officers, as you're well aware, or basically have school assignments, K-12, that are based pretty much on a geographic clustering. So obviously we try to shorten their time of travel between 2 schools. And the county, I think we say, is around 1,400 square miles. So when you divide 12 into 1,400 square miles, they're stretched pretty thin.
They really are.
But the resource officers concentrate their time primarily obviously in the high schools and the middle schools, because that's where the demand for their time is at. But we certainly make routine visits to the elementary sites, and of course any principal, elementary, middle or high, can call us if they have an issue that they need our assistance with.
Now, aren't the resource officers housed in a high school?
Well, they're central office employees, and we have an area here in the central office complex that they work out of. But yes, many of the resource officers, the high schools have provided space for them, but also some of the middle schools have provided space for some of them. Because the high schools, it sometimes had every square inch of space already committed.
Right.
So as we built some new schools and remodeled some schools, some space came available. So if it's in their area, a middle school and an elementary school would suffice, but we usually, as I say, try to stay in the middle and high schools. So.
What kind of training do they have? What are their backgrounds?
Well, last year as an initiative, we were discussing in one of our staff meetings, that question comes up often. So if you go on our website, the system's website, and you click on security, you can look at a resume for each one of the resource officers. If you can find the school that your child attends, click on that school. That'll give you a link to the resource officer. Click on that, and you can see the background of the resource officer.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
You should have told me that.
That works your school. But they have extensive law enforcement experience. Several were supervisor, sergeant, lieutenant ranks. I have one that was a sergeant with the Mobile PD TAC team, the SWAT team, for 8 years.
Wow.
He's had training in dignitary, bodyguard, and all kind of Secret Service training and FBI training. Some of the resource officers have experience and were homicide detectives when I hired them. One was a supervisor at the Child Ad Center who actually assigned and monitored the cases involving child crime. So patrol experience, juvenile experience. So a lot of them worked on the task force, the drug task force. So we're very fortunate, you know, and of course could hardly be looked at as objective, but I'd say as a detective bureau, which basically that's the function that the resource officers provide, we have probably one of the most experienced and talented group of individuals in the resource officer program of any, certainly, law enforcement agency in this community.
What do they do? What is their job?
Well, their primary objective is to create a safe, law-abiding atmosphere on campus. We investigate or cause to be investigated every student code of conduct violation that involves the C, D, or E violation.
Okay, what are those? Yeah.
The C violations are all criminal acts as defined by Title 13, the Criminal Code of Alabama. The D violations are the drug and alcohol violation, and the E violations are weapon or weapon-related violations. Obviously, if the C, D, or E code of conduct violations constitute a felony, then we are obligated and certainly would contact the law enforcement agency with jurisdiction. So we say that we conduct parallel investigations with the law enforcement agencies. So we would call the law enforcement agency in. There again, we're very fortunate, if nothing else, because of our tenure in this community, in this role. We have an excellent working relationship with law enforcement agencies, with the district attorney's office, the court systems. So we're familiar with them and their process as they are with us. So that works very well. How important is that, Bill? Oh, very. You know, what's amazing is that we get calls. When I say we, our office gets calls daily from local law enforcement agencies seeking data. And because it's an active investigation, we can provide that information. So they will call us if they're trying to locate individuals because we have such an extensive database. So that facilitates the law enforcement's efforts in this community. And if I or one of the resource officers, because they have routine daily contact with the various law enforcement, both in patrol, juvenile, and even with some of the supervisory staff, because a lot of the precincts, as you're aware of, sit in the communities as our schools sit in the communities. In fact, we have several precincts that you can throw a rock from a school campus and hit the properties of the police precincts. So rather than call and say, may I speak to the lieutenant or the captain over field services, I call and say, hey, can I speak to Captain Smith, because I know them by name. And then instead of saying, you know, this is William Duffy, Director of Security, I just say, hey, this is Duffy, school system. And it facilitates the effectiveness of the cooperative effort, but it also eliminates a lot of the formality that you kind of have to work through initially to get to know someone. So I've found that to be over the years, and it's not just with law enforcement. Sometimes we forget with the fire departments. We're constantly contacted by local fire departments who want to do training exercises, and they want to train in our schools in the event we would have a situation. So we've had several exercises that we facilitate with the fire departments, and one of the initiatives that is new to the system this year, the Virtual Alabama Safety Program, we've recently completed. We provide that database. We provide a code to the local law enforcement, fire, and EMA, the Emergency Management Agency. And with that code, they can access our database, which is on the state's Virtual Alabama Safety Program. So over the last week, we have been contacting those law enforcement agencies and fire departments, providing them with a code. Now, they're all familiar with this initiative because this is an initiative that has been in development for a couple of years. We actually started the project 2 years ago, fulfilled our commitment to the state, but because we're obviously the largest system in the state, they moved us to last, because what this initiative entails is we provide them with the floor plans, aerial photos of all of our properties.
Okay.
The state, through a grant with a local university in the state, goes in and grids every building, putting in every hall, room,
wow,
first floor, second floor of all of the buildings, and then I guess you would say adjust that onto the grid based on the aerial photographs. They then send us the grids back. So it took them about a year to do all of our 90-plus sites. In the meantime, the resource officers went to the schools, and we have this chart, and we have to go in and mark particular items of interest that are going to then be identified by icons and downloaded into this system on those grids.
That's unbelievable.
That took us, once they sent us the gridded, if that's a word, floor plans back, then we spent most of the summer, the resource officers, downloading the icons, icon by icon. And we're talking about fire pools, fire extinguishers, power supplies, water mains, a lot of material onto each site. And that we just completed that project. I had 4 or 5 of the resource officers worked on that pretty much all summer a week or so ago.
So give me an example of when you could use that, when it is important.
The value of that is, and let's take fire for example, because we just sent this to one of the fire chiefs in Mobile who had, by coincidence, had contacted our facilities department and talked with Tommy Sheffield and made a request for certain data for all of our campuses. Well, because I had discussed with Tommy the fact that we were doing this project. Tommy said, well, he talked with me. I contacted the chief and said, if you'll give us a couple of weeks, I can provide you this in the virtual Alabama format. He was pleased to hear that, and we did. So if there was a fire, when fire rolls up, they can pull that school up on a computer and know where all the fire hydrants are on that campus, know where the fire pools are, know where the fire extinguishers are, know where the gas lines are, where the electrical lines are. So that's data obviously valuable in a fire, but also in a law enforcement response. Where the doors, where the classroom doors, which way do they open, all that type of information. And then with the aerial photo, you can kind of get a perspective on where this building sits related to the building of interest. So there's a wide range of advantage to having this data and having this initiative completed.
That could be used in so many, and I know we're almost out of time, but that could be used in so many situations. I assume if we had a shooter on campus.
Yeah,
that's
certainly.
You hate to even think about it, but it has happened. And so you'd have basically the layout of the land, and that would be very important.
And when you tie that into the fact that high schools, middle schools, and selected elementary schools now have extensive video coverage, which we have made available through some software installation. We have provided access to our video to the local law enforcement agencies. So you can look at live time if we still have power while you're looking at the grid. So that's another advantage. And as far as some new initiatives, we just completed a all-hazard crisis management plan. All of the schools have had to have that for years, but the support facilities have not, the Transportation Maintenance Central Office. So that was another project over the last year. We've contracted with Diversified Emergency Management Associates, and we are in the final stages of completing that project, which gives the support facilities a plan, a detailed plan, that we respond to any type of hazard, man-made or natural, weather, chemical leaks. And in fact, you participated. We had the tabletop exercise this summer that was very beneficial, where we had 2 simulated events, and then we basically practiced going through the stages to address those events.
We have too much to talk about.
But we have a lot going on.
Too many initiatives. Well, not too many, but you know, a lot of good initiatives. Will you come back, because I really do want to talk some more about this?
Be glad to.
Because we are out of time.
Sure.
But thanks, Bill. I appreciate it.
Glad to do it.
And thank you for watching and for listening.